The Human Chair by Edogawa Ranpo, Part 1 of 4. Yoshiko had made it her daily habit, once she had seen her husband off to the ministry, always after 10 in the morning, to finally claim the day as her own and shut herself away in the Western-style study they shared. There, she was at work on a long piece of fiction destined for the summer special edition of K magazine. As a celebrated woman writer of considerable beauty, she had in recent years come to overshadow even her husband, a secretary at the foreign ministry. Letters arrived for her almost daily from unknown admirers, sometimes several at once. That morning too, before she could begin her work, she was obliged to read through the latest batch. They were, as always, tediously predictable, yet out of a woman's gentle consideration, she made it a rule to read every letter addressed to her, whatever its contents. She worked through the simpler ones first, 2 sealed envelopes and a postcard. What remained was a single bulky packet that had the look of a manuscript. No accompanying note had arrived, but such things happened. Unsolicited manuscripts were nothing new. They were usually long and dreadfully dull, but she opened the envelope anyway, if only to glance at the title. It was, as she had expected, pages of manuscript paper, bound together. Strangely, however, there was neither title nor signature. It began abruptly with the words, "Dear Madam," a letter then, after all. She ran her eyes over 2 or 3 lines idly, and felt, almost at once, something distinctly unsettling rise from the page. Her innate curiosity seized her, and she read on. "Dear Madam, I must beg your forgiveness many times over for the impertinence of writing to you out of nowhere, a man of whom you know nothing. What I am about to confess will no doubt come as a great shock. But I find I must lay before you the most extraordinary crime I have committed, a crime unlike any that has ever been known in this world. For several months I have lived entirely concealed from human society in a manner that can only be called diabolical. Not a soul in the wide world knows what I have done. Had nothing intervened, I might never have returned to the world of men. But of late a strange change has come over me. I find I can no longer keep this wretched confession to myself. You will have many questions as you read these words. I ask only that you read to the end. All will become clear, why I felt compelled to speak, and why it is to you, of all people, that I must speak. Where to begin? The facts are so utterly beyond human experience that even the ordinary form of a letter feels strangely inadequate. Yet there is nothing for it. I shall proceed in order from the beginning. I was born with a face of singular ugliness. Please hold that fact clearly in your mind. If you should grant my humble request and agree to meet me, you must be prepared. Not only is my face hideous by nature, but the long months of unhealthy living have made it something hardly fit to look upon. What a cursed existence is mine. Behind that repulsive face, I have always burned with passions of the most intense kind. I, a penniless craftsman, monstrous in appearance, spent my days lost in dreams, sweet, extravagant, impossible fantasies utterly beyond my station. Had I been born into wealth, I might have drowned my wretchedness in pleasures. Had I been granted some artistic gift, I might have lost myself in beautiful verse and forgotten the bitterness of life. But no such mercy was shown me. I was the son of a poor furniture maker, and furniture making was all I had. Continued in Part 2. The Human Chair by Edogawa Ranpo, Part 2 of 4. My specialty was chairs. My work was prized even by the most demanding clients, and the workshop gave me only the finest commissions. Pieces requiring elaborate carving on the backs and armrests, exquisitely tuned cushioning, dimensions calculated to the most delicate specifications. The effort was considerable, but the satisfaction of completing such a piece was beyond anything I can describe. It was, I dare say, something like what an artist feels upon finishing a masterwork. Each time a chair was finished, I would sit in it myself and test its comfort. In those moments, even my dreary craftsman's life felt briefly illuminated. I would think, what great and beautiful people will sit here. In a house fine enough to order such a chair, there must be luxurious rooms, oil paintings on the walls, great chandeliers blazing with jeweled light, rich carpets underfoot, and on the table before this very chair, brilliant western flowers breathing their sweet perfume. For one brief instant, I felt myself the master of that splendid room, an indescribable happiness. My fancies grew wilder still. I, poor, hideous, a mere craftsman, became in my imagination a noble lord, seated in the magnificent chair I had built with my own hands, and at my side stood the beautiful woman who always appeared in my dreams, smiling softly, listening to my every word. I took her hand, I whispered to her words of love, but always, without fail, my violet dream dissolved in an instant, shattered by the raucous voices of neighbors, the hysterical screaming of some sick child nearby. Reality returned, not the noble lord of my fantasy, but the wretched, ugly creature I truly was. And the woman who had smiled at me a moment before, where was she? Even the grimy nursemaid playing in the alley outside would not spare me a glance. Only the chair remained, quiet and solitary, and soon even that would be carried away to some world entirely unlike my own. Each time I finished a chair and sent it off, an unspeakable desolation came over me. As the months passed, it became unbearable. Better to die than go on living like a maggot, I told myself in all seriousness, chipping away with my chisel, driving nails, mixing acrid lacquer. But if I have the resolve to die, surely there must be another way, perhaps. And my thoughts turned, gradually, in a terrible direction. Around that time, I had been commissioned to make something I had never attempted, a large leather armchair for a hotel in Y, run by foreigners. I threw myself into it completely, barely sleeping or eating. I put my very soul into that chair. When it was finished, I felt a satisfaction I had never known before. I carried one of the 4 matching chairs to a sunny spot and sat down. What comfort! The cushion yielded with exactly the right resistance. The leather was smooth against the skin. The back curved at a perfect angle, cradling without pressing. Everything together expressed one word: repose. I sank deep into it, lost in a trance. And then, all at once, a thought struck me. Whether it was the whisper of a devil, I cannot say. It was wild, grotesque, and impossibly alluring. I dismantled the finest of the 4 chairs and rebuilt it according to my strange design. Within the thick seat, back, and armrests ran a single continuous hollow, large enough for a man to conceal himself. I cut tiny slits in the leather for air. I built a small shelf for provisions. The chair had, in effect, become a room. I stripped to my undershirt, lifted the hidden hatch, and crawled inside. Total darkness, suffocating, like climbing into a grave. Before long, men arrived with a cart. One muttered, "This one's damned heavy." My heart froze, but no one was suspicious. By that afternoon, the chair, with me inside it, had been installed in the hotel lounge. Continued in Part 3. The Human Chair by Edogawa Ranpo, Part 3 of 4. My original intention was to slip out of the chair at night and steal whatever I could find. Who would ever imagine a man hidden in a chair? I could move like a shadow from room to room, and when the alarm was raised, retreat to my hiding place and listen with amusement as they searched in vain. I was like a hermit crab, the shell for a home, the hotel floor for my shoreline. The plan worked perfectly. By the 3rd day, I had already carried out 1 successful theft, but I discovered something else, something 10, 20 times more intoxicating than theft. After the hotel staff had inspected the chair and gone, the room fell silent. I held my breath and strained my ears. Then footsteps approached, heavy, deliberate. Suddenly, a large body dropped onto my knees with a thud. The man's thick haunches and my thighs were separated by only a thin layer of leather, warm, startlingly close. His broad shoulders rested against my chest. The rich smell of a cigar drifted through the slits in the leather. Dear madam, imagine yourself in my position. I was rigid with terror, cold sweat running down my sides, my mind entirely blank. That man was only the first. Throughout that day, one person after another came and sat on me. Not one of them suspected that what they took for a yielding cushion was in fact a living man's thigh. In that sealed, lightless world, human beings became something entirely different. They were voices, breath, footfalls, and masses of warm, resilient flesh. I could distinguish them not by their faces, but by their feel. One bloated and soft, another hard and brittle as a skeleton. Differences in the curvature of the spine, the girth of the thighs, each person entirely individual. And then a woman sat down. She entered the room singing softly, threw herself into the armchair with abandon, her full, supple body landing on me, and burst into laughter, wriggling like a fish in a net. For nearly half an hour she sat above me, humming, shifting her weight in time with her song. I had always regarded women as frightening. I had never dared look at one directly. And here I was, separated from this unknown foreign girl by a single layer of soft leather, feeling the warmth of her body. She, utterly unaware, rested her full weight upon me with the easy intimacy of someone entirely alone. From that moment, I forgot all about theft. Surely, I thought, this was where I truly belonged. Hidden here, I could be close to beautiful people, hear their voices, feel their warmth, in a way that would otherwise be forever denied me. Love from inside a chair. Those who have not experienced it cannot imagine its power. It is love of touch alone, of sound, of the faintest trace of scent. Love in total darkness, something that belongs to the realm of demons. The weeks passed. My legs and back ached constantly. Eventually I could no longer stand upright and had to crawl on all fours. And yet I could not bring myself to leave. Among the many who sat above me, two experiences stand out. Once, a great European ambassador rested his frame upon me for 10 minutes, and I thought, if I were to drive a knife through this leather and into his heart, what chaos would follow. I felt an extraordinary sense of power. On another occasion, a famous foreign dancer sat in my chair. She gave me a sensation of beauty I had never encountered before. I could only revere her as one reveres a masterpiece. Continued in Part 4. The Human Chair by Edogawa Ranpo, Part 4 of 4. Then the hotel changed hands. The new management sold off much of the furniture, and my chair was put up for auction. I considered returning to ordinary life. I had accumulated considerable savings, but something felt incomplete. All my hidden companions had been foreigners. Surely one could not truly love across that barrier. If the chair were purchased by a Japanese family, placed in a Japanese home, that might be different. The chair sold quickly. The buyer was a government official living in a large city not far from Y-. I endured the agony of transport by truck over rough roads, but my suffering was nothing against the joy of knowing my new owner was Japanese. The chair was placed in a spacious Western-style study, and what pleased me beyond all measure, the study was used not by the husband but by his young and beautiful wife, a writer working on a manuscript who spent her days shut in that room. For nearly a month, except at meal times and during the night, her supple body was always above me. How I loved her, I need not describe. She was the first Japanese woman I had known so closely, and she was beautiful. For the first time, I felt what I could truly call love. I longed for her to sense my presence. I tried simply to make the chair as comfortable as possible. When she settled into it, I softened myself to receive her gently. When she shifted, I moved almost imperceptibly to ease her. When she drowsed, I rocked her, the faintest possible motion, like a cradle. She seemed lately to have grown fond of the chair. She settled into it with a warmth I had not seen before, the trusting weight of an infant in its mother's arms. Until at last, forgive me, madam, I formed a desperate wish. If only I could see her face, just once, and exchange a single word, I would willingly die for that. Dear madam, you have understood by now, I am sure. The woman I call my beloved, please forgive this impertinence, is you. Since the day your husband purchased my chair, I have cherished for you a love I had no right to feel. I ask one thing, would you consent to meet me, only once, only a word of kindness for this wretched, ugly man? I ask for nothing more. If you will grant this request, please hang your handkerchief on the pot of pinks on the study windowsill. At that signal, I will come to your door as an ordinary caller. The letter ended with words of ardent supplication. By the time Yoshiko reached the middle of it, she had gone pale with dread. She fled the study, fled the hideous armchair, retreating to the sitting room. She read the rest at the small writing desk, her hands cold. The armchair in which she had sat every single day, there had been a man inside it. Oh, how revolting! A chill ran down her back. She could not stop shaking. Madam, a letter has arrived. She spun around. A maid stood holding a freshly delivered envelope. Yoshiko took it and nearly dropped it. The handwriting was identical to that of the letter she had just read. At last she tore it open and read, trembling. It was brief, and it contained something that made her start all over again. Please forgive this unexpected letter. I have long admired your work. Enclosed separately is a humble piece of fiction I have written. I would be grateful for any comment you might offer. For reasons of my own, I posted the manuscript before writing this note, so I expect you have already read it. I neglected to include a title. I intend to call it The Human Chair, with sincere apologies for the intrusion. End.